The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests as individuals, and do not necessarily reflect those of advertisers or sponsors. This show is intended as entertainment and commentary only. The producers strive for verisimilitude, but nothing said on this podcast should be taken as fact by the listener or viewer without performing due diligence. While generally considered safe for work by way of content, some language may be considered offensive by more sensitive viewers or listeners.
Thank you, lady. So, and 3, 2, and hello, and welcome back to Keep Your Hat On, the show where hell even we don't know where we're going to go. I, of course, am Andrew Scott, of course, with Dr. Mark C.E. Peterson, and of course, with Ty Robert Anthony, and of course, with Christopher Vacano, and we might look a little bit different. And actually, I forgot to hit my local recording button, so now I probably look even more different because I look better. Yeah, we're going back to the place where this all started. We're doing this on Zoom right now.
Zoom.
Wow. You know, as I told you guys and as our listeners and viewers have known, it's been a long-running struggle trying to find the platform that helps me, the editor and the producer, do this in the way we want it to look and the way we want it to sound. And the last episode we did, we were using a new platform, and it was great and all that stuff, except for the fact that I've been super busy the last 3 weeks intervening between then and now. And I came home from doing an excursion today with my partner Heather, looking for stuff. And I just completely forgot how to use that other platform. I pulled it up and it's looking back at me, and there was like some update. They're like, this is gonna be a great update. It's gonna have all the new things you can do. It completely wiped my control board. Everything's staring back at me, and it's like they're just blank heads, and it says add left, and it's just all very confusing. So
when did we stop complaining about planned obsolescence? You remember this? This was a thing my whole life.
And you know what? It's funny that you bring that up, because that was what, our second episode, I think?
The Fix It episode.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
repair stuff.
Right, exactly.
Right.
A couple
now we have self-repairing inconvenience is what we've got now, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, well, that's just it. And I always find it interesting that, you know, the big tech companies, and that actually holds hands with our topic today, but the big tech companies always tell you that they are improving the user experience. Okay, that must be their definition of improvement is.
Yeah. And who is that damn user anyway? We need to find them and have them killed.
Right? Yes, the generic user.
The generic user.
But no, we were out today, and one of the things that I'm doing this year is, you know, we've got a small house here. I think we're about 1,450 square feet, and you know, my space is in one half of a garage. Heather's office is in a bedroom. You know, we're just a tiny little flat ranch. And we've got stuff, you know, we're in our 50s. And again, I just turned 56 today.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
I'll insert some royalty-free music here or something like that. But we were out looking for shipping pallets because I'm that kind of Mother Earth News former hippie type person. I love reusing shit. I love keeping stuff out of landfills. So we were out looking for pallets because one of the things I'm tasked with this summer is building a couple sheds. We are in desperate need of outbuilding on this property. And I'll put up an image here of some of the inspirational sheds that we've been looking at that are made out of pallets.
It's aspirational, I think, as you.
Exactly. Wait, aspirational meaning I have to aspirate and choke on my own vomit.
Yeah,
in order to get
you're
it to
aspiring to these sheds. You're not going to actually build them. I think that's what that.
No, I actually am. I miss building things, and now that I've got the shop in shape.
Oh, I saw the pictures. It's clean. You can find things now.
Well, here and again, my spirit animal, which is Adam Savage, has this the first shop axiom. Number one shop axiom is that any horizontal surface will get covered in crap
Yeah.
at the next available opportunity. And sure as shit if that didn't happen. But no, we didn't get pallets today, but I did come back with this fabulous, and I'm showing a picture here, this fabulous cart, industrial cart. These mofos go for around $350 each. It was just sitting on the side of the road back behind some large generic, pole factory type thing. And
Huh.
we're just like, oh, we're driving off with that. But how's you guys? What's going on with everybody else in your worlds? There we go. We hadn't had crickets in a
We
while.
haven't had crickets for a while. I'm trying to restrain my my ranting. I'm retiring.
Oh, preach
Yep.
it.
If I knew that there was this much paperwork, I would not have decided
just to
to retire. There's a lot, and you can do it online and stuff, but they don't tell you everything. And I will say, and this is kind of shocking to me, that the Social Security people have actually been really awesome, which I guess is not normal, but they were. And pension folks also quite awesome. And if I were really going to complain about this, and I guess I will, the real big news for me is the shock of seeing that in my 36 years with the University of Wisconsin, retiring is the biggest raise I'll ever have had in my life.
Isn't that weird?
It is. But on the other hand, it's a really nice surprise. And it's like, are you sure? I had to ask the Social Security guys.
You had that thing going on in your head, like, well, what am I going to do with myself? And then all of a sudden it's just like, whatever the fuck I want,
now that's the other.
I can afford it.
There's another existential problem here, which is the one that we never go away from, but it's hitting me in the head now. And that's that I suddenly realized that I really get to do now. So what's going to happen after, like, technically May 19th?
Right.
And the answer is, what are you going to do? And it's like, well, I can do anything I want. I mean, literally, like, I can do anything I want. And the problem is that I have no idea what that is. And I've never had I never got that chance before. I never got to do that. I was always strapped into my mission.
Yeah.
And now I'm sort of not. I've been put on relief from the universe until my next mission shows up, which will probably happen in the fall, and it will involve housing in Milwaukee.
Awesome. It's funny that you are going through this and bringing this up. A lot of people know that I was doing and still do professional voice work. But I stepped away from that. I'm kind of changing tack a little bit, but it's funny because I brought it up to Heather when I switched gears really hard from December into January. And part of that is being properly medicated against both my depression and against my ADHD. Or with, I shouldn't say against, that sounds adversarial, but I kind of told Heather the other day, because I'm back to mowing the lawn. And it's a struggle for me. My disability has grown. I don't walk like I used to, but it's kind of funny because I can use a push mower, and I can use a push mower kind of like a walker. And so it's good exercise. It gets me up and moving around, but I kind of broke down a truth for Heather. And I was like, you know what? I kind of understand why retired men suddenly turn into lawn professionals.
Yeah, lawn people. Yeah.
Because part of it is just like, well, what the fuck do I do now? And then it's just like you look over there and you go, that's a little shaggy over there. It could probably use a so, we
turn into our parents and grandparents eventually. I think that's just one of those universal truths. But
the good news about that is that I don't think that I'll ever turn into my old man, because I was talking with Heather again today. His big thing when he retired is he started making furniture out of PVC pipe.
Okay.
And it was always like a roll of the dice sitting down at, and he didn't even use PVC glue. He used like pop rivets. So you sit, and we're a good Midwestern family, right? None of us were what you would call svelte. So you put our big Wisconsin backsides in these square purgatorial PVC pipe chairs. It wasn't okay. Tell you what, we'll catch up with everybody else on the other side. We're going to run this really tight today because I think Zoom only lets us do 40 minutes on a record.
That's all.
So-
You know, our friends in India, they don't want to listen to more than 40
Exactly.
minutes.
You know what? This is probably a good diet for us. This is the Narrowband Broadcast Network. I'm Andy. That's Dr. Mark. That's Chris. That's Ty. We'll be back in just a second. You know the drill. Don't go anywhere. Bye. And 3, 2, 1. There. Didn't even give Dr. Mark a chance to cough his lung up.
Yeah.
We're the Hats. We're back. Ty, anything happened for you in the last couple of weeks you want to catch us up on?
What happened for me the last couple of weeks?
You, sir, also had a birthday.
Oh, yeah, there's that.
Right. That's kind of how I address it, too. Yeah, that thing happened. Yeah, that was the thing that happened.
Yeah.
You leveled up.
Birthday. Congratulations, I made it. Woo.
Right, that's kind of what I look at it. I go, you know
know.
what? I might ache and everything's going wrong, but you know what? I was told I wouldn't make it this far, and I did.
Yeah, you know, I woke up the other morning and I was just thinking about things that I have. I mean, I open my sock drawer and I go, well, you know what? I got a full sock drawer. I'm not doing bad in life.
Right? Exactly. Well, and you know that I know that that's kind of a significant analogy for you, being that you've spent a not insignificant amount of your time working with the unhoused, the underprivileged, and people for whom a pair of socks is a big fucking deal. And so I like the way you look at that and go, you know what, man, I got so much more than so many other people have.
Yeah,
And
you know, I
it's
kind of
true.
looked around and the other thought that I had was, you know, I wonder if this is the life that all the rock stars dream.
It
right?
is.
Yeah.
It totally is.
Just that, yeah, and you know, all the running and gunning that we used to do. It's funny. My sister posted something on Facebook today that just totally resonated with me, and that is, you hit a certain age where you have a favorite burner on your stove. And she is totally right. And I don't know, mine's front right, but only because that stove forces it on me because it's a piece of garbage and it's waiting to meet my sledgehammer. Chris, you got anything to catch us up on?
Yeah, I actually in the spirit of
Oh my
I mean,
God, you cut your
is
hair.
the season
Yeah, check it out,
This
right?
is the season for birthdays. My son just turned 21 and made his
Yep.
21st
Oh,
lap
dear.
around the sun. Or completed his 21st lap. And so this has been kind of a busy week in that vein. You know, we've been doing little bits and bobs around that, and it's been pretty fun. Other than that, I'm doing just my work-life balance has been thrown off a bit because I've got some very, very big projects that have bubbled up that I'm really excited about and into. And then on the other hand, I'm in this place now of starting to think about firing some of the, you know, bottom end nuisance clients.
Yeah.
And so I think there's going to be some tough conversations immediately in front of me.
Well, we're all caught up, and now I want to shift gears pretty radically. So the last couple shows, we've been dealing with this whole AI onslaught. And, you know, I think only rightly so, because it's suddenly top of mind for everybody in a way that 2-3 years ago, we didn't really anticipate. Back 2-3 years ago, we were mostly concerned with the manipulation of people into social media, right? You know, the whole what is Facebook doing with your data and all that stuff, and that's still a thing. The whole AI thing, fairly or unfairly, kind of took us all by surprise as a culture. But now that whole thing is here, our dear friend, listener, supporter, viewer, Kermit, which is my partner's father, brought up a question that I felt was pretty salient right now. And that is this idea of techno-authoritarianism.
Mm.
And to start off this bit of the conversation, we're not going to do this justice. But with the rise of people like Bezos and Zuckerberg, and of course, Musk, what are your thoughts on I mean, well, first of all, what do we all think techno-authoritarianism is? And I'm going to throw this to you, Mark, because you're going to probably condense this in something that's more useful for the three of us.
He'll stick it.
Right?
He'll stick the landing.
So what do you think? What's the best way to kind of describe what techno-authoritarianism is in light of other forms of political persuasion, political coercion?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I was this morning, in fact, one of my colleagues at University of Colorado, Ben Hale, just posted a thing on Facebook. And you can look this up. Maybe I'll send the link in here.
Yeah, please.
Umberto Eco. Yeah, it's in the archive.org thing. Umberto Eco wrote a great little piece about the nature of fascism some years ago. And Eco is usually we think of him as the name of the rose guy, right?
Yeah, but he's no,
but he's
no,
so much.
He's one of my boys,
and deep philosophy,
and he's funny, by the way, which is usually the mark of a real philosopher,
right?
Yet I it's interesting about techno-fascism, which is really just it's the fetishization of the algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you this, it's funny. It's like, I keep thinking about, because I've had to think about if I had one, because I'm retiring. So I've been trying to think, it's like, what's the last thing I should, what have I learned being in philosophy, all these decades and going through the training? And I think, and this will actually answer our question. I think it comes down to this one Yiddish proverb, which is, to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
And I think that's techno-fascism. Because they got a hammer. And, there's all the jokes about, to somebody with Microsoft Office, everything looks like a PowerPoint demonstration.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yes, Ty.
Right.
Yes. What?
Could I jump in on this?
Please. That's all I had, actually. But I think it's right.
I'm actually being, by the way, talk about techno-fascism. I'm already being told that we're running out of time on this. We might need to restart the call and come back to it again.
Well, here, I want to just, before we get knocked out, here's a really good definition. The global development and proliferation of technologies used to control and repress.
I think you got the real word there to me, and Chris, don't worry, I know that you're trying to jump in. I'll get to you before we got to restart the call and keep recording. The big significant word in that, Ty, is repress, in my mind, is the repression of things. And that one of the things that I think that's interesting that is happening is that, and I'm going to use the term both sides, even though, you can't have both sides of a sphere. I think this is coming at it from many different directions, but both sides feel like there are certain aspects of what they want in life that are being repressed due to technology.
Oh, I see where you're headed. Yeah.
Because one of them is my freedom of speech.
But also control. I mean, let's look at the 2012 Facebook experiments.
Yeah.
They told nobody about, so that they could see whether they could control you and herd you into a direction.
Well, and then of course, right on the back of that, you got Cambridge Analytica, which, and I still honestly think that Cambridge Analytica was part and parcel of the great Facebook experiment of how much can we socially engineer people's attitudes towards certain things. And if Cambridge Analytica wasn't involved with it, I will bet dollars to donuts that Cambridge Analytica benefited from that, because that is some valuable data to almost any company. Chris, where were you going with this?
So, absolutely right on, to both of you guys, full agreement. Mark, I really liked your turn of a phrase with fetishization
Fetishization of the algorithm.
Yeah. I don't talk.
I went all Marx there for a sec, but yeah, okay.
And I would couple that with obsession with automation, and that's a really important component here, because the sort of operating principle of these technology companies is, we can automate it for you so that we can automate decisions, we can automate tasks and activities, we can automate all these different things for you, and we know better, what you want than you do, and we know better how to get you there, and we're going to automate all of this to make your life easy. And that's their pitch, and that's their selling. What is actually happening, though, is instead of alleviating pain points, they are removing our agency to make those decisions, to fail, to come up with unique and interesting approaches to things,
Well,
to
and
do things wrong.
And what's really interesting in what you just brought up is that if you whittle everything down into the smallest system, in a philosophical context, what they're really doing is they're automating the human experience.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And defining a template that it should follow. And
That's what I mean about the algorithm.
and that's absurd.
Yeah, and I think I want to talk about, when we come back, I want to talk about a little bit more about the algorithm, because I'm still on the fence as to whether or not it's a real thing or it's a bugaboo, and I have a few thoughts, but we'll be back on our second Zoom call in order to harvest all this stuff, because we're about to get dumped. Narrowband broadcast. We're the Hats. Back in a second. Don't go anywhere. Bye. Okay, let me hit stop on record. So, 3, 2. And we're back on the third segment of Keep Your Hat On. We are just plowing right through. I am Andrew Scott, of course, along with Dr. Mark C.E. Peterson and Christopher Picano and Ty Robert Anthony. And we are talking about techno-authoritarianism right now.
Yeah.
Now, Mark, one of the things that you brought up, there's two things that I kind of want to throw on the pile here before we switch over. Ty's got an interesting point about government and this phenomena. But two things. When you were talking about Umberto Eco, you were talking about techno-fascism. Now, the topic that we laid out is techno-authoritarianism.
Oh, I jumped right there.
But that's right. But isn't that the next logical step? I mean, if you have authoritarianism, aren't you? We hear you are within sight of fascism at the moment that you can say that you are under an authoritarian state of control, wouldn't you? Yeah.
The beauty of the point that Eco makes in this thing is he's writing as a child he'd been a child under Mussolini, right?
Yeah.
And so he'd grown up with that. And the point he's making is the one that is not gotten to be obvious yet, which is that we use all these isms sort of interchange, as if they're different, rather, right? So it's like we talk about communism as if it's different from fascism, as if it's different from any of these other. And the real axis is about whether and to what degree it's authoritarian. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it really means. And Denmark is socialist, but I would not call them authoritarian. Whereas Hungary will claim to be socialist, and I'm going to just say probably authoritarian.
Heavily authoritarian.
So, I think that's a good leap.
And so,
or at least an accurate one,
yeah. And so I think that's probably the deal with the fascist versus authoritarian line. But that's what was in my head at that moment.
The other thing about it, though, that you brought up, and it's the two aren't holding hands entirely, but this idea of the thanks, Chris. Fetitization, and I said it wrong still. The fetitization of the algorithm. I mean, to me, now we've got this algorithm, and it brings up two songs in my head. The first one is In the Year 2525, and the second one is, of course, The Sounds of Silence. Right. And so either one of our listeners, you can pick the song you want in your head about this. But this idea of the algorithm, I'm starting to wonder.
The algorithm.
Right. Exactly. Like there's only one. Yeah. Or are we moving to only one? Right. There's all sorts of stuff where the mind can go in dark places, in dark times.
Yeah.
And I can't say that I'm entirely saying no, But
Oh, right. Yeah.
we not only are starting to fetishize that, but part of me is wondering whether or not we are, and again, I say this having spent a lot of time being a person on YouTube concerned about things like metrics and how many people are watching and when they dial in and the algorithm and how to, are we starting to demonize the algorithm as well? And almost in preparation to kind of turn it into a scapegoat at times. And I'm not saying, and I'm not saying that there aren't bad things that have happened because of this. And I mean, when we're talking the algorithm, we are kind of talking a bit of a hands-off approach to technology. They have created something. They have created a system that is very good at looking at forms of input and interaction and then predicting what the behavior of those vectors will be going into the future. That, in this circumstance, is what an algorithm does. But this idea of it being black boxed, this idea that, and frankly, there's some truth to the matter that Google doesn't really honestly know what its algorithm is anymore.
That's been the most interesting part, is the degree to which the software has gotten away from the engineers now. That just, and I can't believe that, by the way, but that's what they tell me. What's fascinating about this is that we wouldn't have the political divisiveness that we have now if it weren't for the algorithm running social media and feeding people back their own worst fears, right?
Right.
People, and ironically, and of course, this is what we know now, is ironically, the people who are complaining most about big tech are the very people who only exist because of the divisiveness that was caused by algorithm feeding.
Who have benefited from those algorithmic echo chambers.
They're absolutely in the belly of the beast, and that's where these messages are welling up. Is and I mean, as a human endeavor, that is kind of an interesting phenomena. I mean, the way I would analogize it is, who's going to complain most loudly about the conditions of a prison cell?
Right.
The person in the cell.
Yeah.
So that seems very natural to me. If I could, this whole thing about the algorithm, and I'm with you. Understood at its most simple, all an algorithm is a recipe. It is
kind of, yeah.
You put in inputs, it gives you outputs, and that's it. That's all it does. Is it's a series of steps that transforms inputs into outputs. And I'm intrigued by this notion you raised that maybe we are starting to set up the algorithm not just as a scapegoat, but as a shield for really bad behind the scenes human
I was just going to say,
I like that a lot better.
Culpability and responsibility, right?
Yeah.
And Ty brought up, and we're headed here next, this idea of, because where we really need to go with this, we can use the term techno-authoritarian, but we've got to point it at not something, but somebody or somebody.
There's always somebody.
Right? And so, Ty, you'd mentioned this idea of, well, where does politics, and we'll use it capital P politic, the politic, where does the matter of politics come into play here? Because now, for the past couple of years, we've had this ongoing battle in the U.S., the halls of the Capitol, of these hearings with senators and representatives grilling people like Mark Zuckerberg or representatives of Amazon in this. And the thing that makes me the most nervous is that, for the most part, even the politicians that I trust and kind of support, they don't have the first damn idea what they're doing and what they're talking about with these, for another use of another term, these technocrats.
Oh, it's
You know,
embarrassing when you watch the hearings, right?
Oh, it is. Oh, it's cringeworthy.
Yeah, yeah.
they don't even know how the internet works.
No,
Well,
they
and
let alone
they
anything
barely
not
know
only,
how to internet. They have
And
people
I'm
that
serious.
internet for them. So do I. So am I.
If,
not only
if
is it embarrassing and cringeworthy, every single person who watches those hearings should be absolutely fucking terrified, because the people who are at the levers of power who make policy decisions are getting circles run around them by these guys, and are clearly so visibly out of their league, and so completely not clued into what is going on the ground in the world.
I know I'm not going to be able
And
to
yet they're in a
find it.
position to make decisions.
I know I'm not going to be
Important
able to find
decisions.
it, but I remember a couple of years ago with some of the first rounds of, and I think it was the one where they dragged Zuckerberg in, where you know how when they've got the C-SPAN cameras going and they do like these slightly wider shots, where it's the gallery behind, and that's essentially where all the pages are lined up to support their senators and everything. And I think it might have been, unfortunately for me, it might have been somebody like Chuck Schumer was actually at the mic, and he was talking about the internets, and you could literally see all these pages with their eyes glossing over like, oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah.
Grandpa doesn't get it.
Grandpa doesn't get it. Exactly right. And in his defense, I think honestly, Shermer is one of the more in-tuned people. At least his page is telling him the right
That's a
things
rule.
and telling him not to call it the Twitters. You know, I mean,
Well, and you know, from my experiences years ago, you know, back in the 90s, actually pounding the halls of Congress, advocating for legislation and meeting with Congress people, meeting with senators, and most importantly, meeting with their legislative aides. I learned one thing, one very, very key lesson about how Washington works is every single senator, every single congressperson, they are only as good as the team of legislative aides they put together.
And that's just that the aides are where the real power is. And the thing about it, the senators and the representatives, they just make face noises to cameras. That's all they're there for. They're the mouthpieces.
And I want to jump on that idea though, because this is something that's been stirring in my mind all week. You know, we talk a lot about Zuckerberg and Musk and Bezos and, you know, whoever else. And these are individuals, right? Sergey Brin, you know, these are individuals. And it occurs to me that they're being used as encapsulated targets for us to vent our anger at.
They're almost effigial.
And it's distracting
I want them
us,
to be.
yeah, it's distracting us from the bigger authoritarianism that's going on in the world, that is being conducted by large groups of people whose names we don't know, and for very good reason. And I'd like to illustrate with an example from my own experience the last couple of weeks. One of my clients had their website being blocked by a major national internet service provider arbitrarily.
Okay.
The site was serving just fine everywhere else, wasn't on any blacklists, anything like this. I embarked on a 3-week journey through the Hall of Mirrors.
It's never good when you start categorize something as a journey.
Through the Hall of Mirrors that is this hosting provider. And what I learned is that they internally have a secret clandestine organization that works in complete autonomy. They do whatever the hell they want, and they are there. Ostensibly, their charter is to protect their users from bad shit on the internet. However, there is no visibility, there is no transparency, and most importantly, me as a regular citizen, whether I'm one of their customers or a guy developing a website, I cannot get to them. Every time I got close, I got punted off to somebody else who had absolutely nothing to do with it. They are bulletproof. They are isolated, and they operate like the CIA.
And it's interesting
that
because
shit is scary.
And that's, we're not even talking about that being on like the macro level. That is slightly larger because you're talking about serving up web pages pretty much to anywhere else in the world. I'm going to take this whole thing and kind of micro it. So we've got now these new fabulous, fancy, my Apple Watch, right? Which is connected to my Apple phone. Number one, Chris, thank you, etc. I hate this thing. I am, as soon as possible, going to be going back into the Android ecosystem. And part of the reason why is this. I am so goddamn sick and tired of these two devices telling me that what I'm listening to is too loud. They don't know the environment I'm in. They don't know my hearing damage that I'm trying to make up for.
And that you're trying to cause.
Well, no, that was since age 17 is when my tinnitus kicked in at band practice. But the look, I understand the motivation for doing it. I think it's got some nobility behind it because I do believe that for the most part, people do listen to their music too loud and they are causing damage. And I don't wish my tinnitus on anybody, but the idea that I cannot tell these devices to not do that, and that I pretty much, in order to have the ability to listen to something, I'm going to let this thing scold me.
I'm sorry, Dick.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Can't do that.
And
hey, Andy.
Yeah, bud. Yeah.
Sometimes a good smack on the desk helps.
Oh, I actually I gotta give credit to the shock case that I bought. I don't remember the company. I did, however, drop this from hand height, getting out of my truck, which has a 2-inch lift kit on it, and this puppy came down directly on the corner on the driveway and laughed it off. So in that regard, I'm happy. Let's get back to the way I want to go out on this is, we've been talking about that we have these people that we are, I don't know, are we looking to pillory them? Are they scarecrows? Are they straw men? These big techno leaders? And finally, what is there to do about this phenomena? This technology our lives are so hooked in this world.
Oh, isn't it amazing? I mean, I had a friend, we were talking, and it occurred to me after that conversation, we don't know how to do things anymore. 50 years on of having this computer thing, if you didn't have the computer to Google how to plant a seed,
you might have to go to the library.
There's a lot of folks
somebody.
There's a lot of folks out there. That
18-year-olds. The 18-year-olds don't know how to read anymore. There was an article about this in Atlantic, right, just recently. Well, they can't read.
This is
they don't
what I
read.
was talking about at the beginning of the show. That we're surrendering our agency.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Well, but here's the question: are we surrendering it, or is it being engineered away from us?
Oh, it's being engineered away from us.
See, that's kind of where my mind is, and that's where you talk about the authoritarian aspect of this.
Yeah, but they like it too, though.
If
I mean, that's the
you
other
are on
thing.
social media,
exactly right.
You're being led around the nose, and we do. We like it. We don't see it.
Yeah, I have two things just really screaming in my head. One of them is
tell them to shut up.
Yeah, tell them to shut the hell up. One of the things. So this is something that came out of Karl Marx, by the way, about ideology. And this was like the Marxist crowd never likes to talk about this, but there's a really cold line in Capital where he goes, the purpose of ideology is to give the masses something to believe in because they're not smart enough to understand the reasons.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. Anyway, don't tell the proletariat that they're too stupid. But the too stupid part is that, and this is the other component, is that what the algorithm does is it makes it easy for you not to question the underlying assumptions of things, right? You don't have to anymore.
Yeah.
And because it does it all for you and stuff. And you get used to that. And this is what I mean about they kind of like it. And so what I'd go even further, Ty, and say that people kind of like giving up their agency, right? Because that means that you get to get rid of your responsibilities, which is like awesome.
You lose the tyranny of choice.
Yeah.
Ooh, Chris.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what that's what I would have said if I thought.
And then you have eventually it's a slope in which you end up landing in China, right? China is known for having two Great Walls, one physical,
and
one
the other is a
with the
firewall.
TikTok. Did you guys saw this, right? With what the Chinese kids see on TikTok as opposed to what we see?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Wildly different.
All done.
Ubiquitous technical surveillance that's going on, not only here, right? We have the NSA, who, by the way, is spying on all of us and getting away with it.
Hi, boys.
Aren't you guys old enough to have had internet addresses where people in their signature files used to say hi Fort?
Oh yeah.
Remember
oh yeah.
that?
Yeah. That was in my FIDO address.
I wanted to follow up with the Zen guys here too, because look, isn't this part of one of the walls you run up against in your practice is this unwillingness to confront the things that are actually conditioning your behavior and your thinking.
Well, and it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that tack up, because that's kind of where I was going to go with this, because,
I'm sorry. Chris.
On one hand, part of us wants to know if there's anything that we can do about this. But we always ask, is there anything to do about this, when it's nearly or well past the point of being able to do anything about it? It's like people asking about, is there anything we can do about the ice loss in the Arctic? Yeah, fucking cry. That's what you can do about it. Where were you 25, 30 years ago when we were saying, what should we do about it? When it comes to these authoritarian leaders, and where I'm going with this is corporate, and there's going to be a Zen tie-in. But this idea now, and this is very Robert Heinlein kind of thing for me, where, Nord, the corporations are the things, right? And really what we're seeing now with this, combined with this dramatic bifurcation of our culture here in the United States between red and blue and a smattering of purple here and there, and this idea that there are organizations now on both sides of the aisle that are trying to couch themselves as these fraternal organizations, that want to, frankly, have a national divorce. Say, things are so bad now and culture is so bifurcated that we have to coexist on the continent, but we don't have to coexist together as a union. And where this comes for me with this idea of spiritual practice is, as you were saying, Mark, staring into the face of the howling wind, where we can't ignore this anymore. And we can't ignore that we've got a big chunk of people in this country that want nothing to do with the other part. And at the same time, we've got a government that is in this do-nothing disabled mode. And frankly, who's stepping in to fill the void are corporations.
End-stage capitalism.
Bingo. And really, when it comes to staring into this void in a form of spiritual practice, and I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this in the last couple of weeks, going, there's virtually nothing that I can do about the situation, except go back to what we're taught, which is can't do anything about the situation. This is what's happening right now. The only thing you can do is mitigate and control your response to it. And my response is, I'm trying everything I can to just be happy.
I'm really glad you said that, Andy, because a couple of times here you've said you can't do anything about it, and I believe that you always have the one single option, which is adapt and adjust. And that's essentially what you just said. Manage your response.
And I think part of it is the difference between the royal question of what can we do about it versus the individual question
I think that's
of what can I do about it.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
We have, first of all, I mean, in Zen, we're taught to ask the questions, right? Ask the questions, go over it again, ask the questions, ask a different question. And for that, the internet is a great tool, right? If you're asking the right questions. Man, the question is what can you do about it? Well, at the end of the day, I chose to just start opting out.
Yeah.
Right. Not participating in something that is civilly or socially engineered, right? That is going to funnel me someplace without me knowing it.
Or at least without you perceiving that that's what's happening.
Well, that's just it. It's happening, right? It's going to happen if I get on there. So then why get on there? Right. And again, it's designed for dopamine hits and all this other stuff. And why do it?
And I want to be clear, though, to our viewers and listeners, and that is, there's nothing, I don't think any of us are saying that there's anything inherently wrong with social media experiences, because there are good things that have come from it. Number one, Dr. Mark and I have been able to stay in touch, even though he was my professor 30 some years ago.
Back when the dinosaurs roamed?
Oh yeah, no, it was, yeah.
There were some there. Yeah.
There were a few. None of these things, and this is, I think, where, again, we go back to Zen practice for those of us who do. And that is this idea that there is no useful application of black and white thinking in this dynamic.
That's what it counts on.
Sort of does. And that's what most of this, and the interesting term that's now new, but it's not new. It's more new in the social conversation. This idea of parasocial relationship. This idea that you have an ability to experience a type of relationship with somebody normally that would not be in your world. And the most famous example is following celebrities and seeing the inside glimpses of their life on Instagram and stuff like that, which of course is all completely curated and, quite frankly, a lot of it's
staged and contrived,
totally staged.
And nobody knows it. Nobody or most people don't recognize.
Well, and the interesting thing about that, though, is that there are some good things that come out of that. That's why I want to point out to people that this isn't a black and white thing. What it is you might want to start taking a chapter from what some of us in this spiritual practice that is less about big dude in sky and more about what am I experiencing now? And that is to realize that everything is a shade of gray. And if you keep looking at something as being black and white, right or wrong, you're going to start missing all the nuances of, some social media stuff is good, but then there's the quagmire bullshit hellscape over here. Or something like, corporations are actually starting to shape, engineer, and drive where our country is going. Shouldn't I be paying attention to that?
And asking yourself the question, is this true? Where is this true? Right? Ask those deeper questions.
And not even necessarily because you use the T word. I ask myself, what is the benefit to this? Is there a benefit to this? Is there something?
Follow the money.
Right? And that's just it. There's benefits to social media. I get to be in touch with people and have actual intellectual and emotional relationships with people that I never would have met without. But at the same time, how much of that was shaped by sources powered by somebody who's honestly, it's not even the person, it's not the Zuckerberg, it's not the Musk. What I'm worried about I'm worried about the boards, the investors, the captains of industry who don't give a shit. They simply want to see that stock market line ticking up.
Just
you
that
know?
constant pursuit of profit. Yeah. It occurs to me, and again, this has been rattling around in my head a little bit this week, and Andy, I think you zeroed in on it, that maybe we're at the very strange point in the arc of the human endeavor, or the human experiment, if you will, where we have found the envelope or the straitjacket of binary thinking. And maybe the only way out is to start to break that down and recognize that the absolute extremes, they bind the center, but that doesn't mean anything goes on there. Everything goes on in the center, in that gray continuum.
I would like to think that in some way, shape, or form, you're probably right. But as far as binary thinking in this paradigm goes, I kind of am more along the lines of the Voyager 1 and 2 spacecraft, where they're spitting out a bunch of nonsense now that we're still trying to understand because things have gone a little bit south way out there in the Oort cloud. But if I had my opportunity, I'd be following with them.
I got a question.
No, okay, go for it, because I was just about to jump out.
Jump out. Go ahead and jump out.
Nope.
Okay.
You've already shit in my Wheaties, so we better make it good.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it. Go ahead.
We need merch for that, don't we? We need a bumper sticker for that. Go on. I'm just
isn't that a
track here.
trademark?
Don't shit in my Wheaties. Go on.
I don't know, but I will be registering the domain.
So, how far out are we before? I mean, we in China, they watch your face, they watch your interactions.
Oh, yeah.
You get demerits or pluses. How long before we see folks jumping into our bank account or freezing our bank account?
You don't think that's already happening?
Because we didn't do something socially that they found socially correct.
Soon.
I'm thinking that it has already happened in certain ways. I think the real question is how long is it going to take before it is commonplace? Yeah. And really one of the things that we're going to talk about in our next episode, and then I swear to God, people, we're going to try to find something fun to talk about as opposed to the end of the world as we know it and we feel fine. But this idea that
aliens,
right?
I can't
never
believe that's
fucking
not fun
aliens.
for you.
Is this idea that data lives forever. Data lives forever.
Yeah.
I can in just a few clicks see some of the very first web pages that I ever designed way back in like 95, 96.
Oh,
interesting choice of words there with way back.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'm glad you caught that. There's a rim shot going off here. But that's starting to have some really significant consequences. And for people of a certain age like us, thinking about your digital life and what are you leaving? Digital legacy. And that's just it. What are you leaving behind? For good and not so. Because I tell you, there's some shit that I typed in on a keyboard that I'm pretty friggin' embarrassed about.
Yeah.
And
I can never run for president. That's a fact.
No, that's just it. I got some serious skeletons, and we're going to be kind of spending some time talking about that on next episode. But until next time, everybody, do us a favor, like, click, subscribe. If you want to support this nonsense on Patreon, please do so. Link is in the description. But until next time, everybody, I, of course, am Andrew Scott. That's Ty Robert Anthony. That is Dr. Mark Peterson. That is Christopher Vacano. We're the guys from Keep Your Hat On, and yeah, do so because we may end up miles from here. Thanks a lot, everybody. Take care. See you soon, and bye-bye. Out.